Hey, everybody, welcome back to another episode of Early Childhood Chats. Andy Rozak with you as always. And today being joined by Dr. Kim Honnick, who is a great friend. Love to see Kim. She's got a long and very established career. Man, you've done a lot of tremendous stuff over 30 plus years in this field. So it seems hard to believe, isn't it? Um,
Yes, I started when I keep pushing it back. I used to say 12, then I said 9. Now I'm like a 4-year-old prodigy or something like that. But yeah.
Well, Dr. Kim is awesome. I've had the chance to work with her several times over the years, and boy, like I said, she's really had a lot of really interesting roles, and I love how you bring all that experience from your past really to bear on what you're doing now. And we'll talk about Bo Knowz and all the great stuff that you're up to. But by way of background, I mean, gosh, a teacher, a principal, a director, an assistant superintendent, consultant, on and on and on. Just a generally an awesome person with a tremendous amount of experience and knowledge. And so grateful to have you here on the podcast today and share about some of the really cool stuff that you've been up to. I probably didn't do your introduction justice. I'm sorry. Is there anything you'd like folks to know about yourself in the way of bio or background or anything like that?
No, Andy, that's fantastic. I'm super grateful. You're always so generous and kind, and I'm super appreciative of that. So I think if I have to say one thing about myself is that my passion is teaching and learning. My purpose is to serve children, and that's what fuels my why is serving children and families. And it's my life's work. It's my purpose, my passion, and I absolutely love it.
And I tell everybody, I said, boy, when I get together with Kim, watch out because your passion is infectious. Your attitude, your whole demeanor is just you're just so positive. I love every interaction we've ever had. You're just such a wonderful human being, and we need that in early childhood. Look, we're in this business to help young kids and shape them and mold them and get them off on the greatest path we can. So you have definitely got the best attitude award for anybody out there, and your passion is just so energetic and so infectious. So thank you so much. So I know you've done a lot of stuff in the last couple of years, including starting Bo Knowz Learning, named after your wonderful puppy. Tell us about what's been going on in Kim's life.
Yeah, thanks so much again. So, I've had a lot of ideas for maybe over 20 years now that crept up into my mind as a teacher. Um, One started really early in the 90s when I was teaching in Paterson, New Jersey. And I always struggled to find materials that I thought my kids could really connect to. And one of the most valuable moments for me as a teacher in my own personal and professional growth and learning was we were teaching this math lesson, and it was the data, statistics, and probability chapter in the book. And I'm going through this and I'm like, I'm going to put the book to the side and I'm going to replicate what needs to be taught, but I'm going to have the kids own the content. And so this was fifth grade. I asked my fifth graders what they would want to study about. So we're going to collect some research, do some data stuff, data talk, but they wanted to do a survey on the beverages people like to drink. Okay, so we created a little survey. Again, this is the 90s, so everything's on paper and
Okay.
pencil. But when their homework assignment over 2 nights, or I gave them a few days to do it, but to have these surveys filled out, 100% of the homework came back. I said, well, we're off to a good start, right?
Wow.
So I used the children's ideas and their data to construct this unit of study on data probability and statistics anchored in what they were interested in. And I put them in cooperative learning groups, and one group did a pie graph and the other one did a pictograph. So they learned all the things just without the book. And it was really simple. It was construction paper, like scissors and glue, like nothing crazy. But that year, when we had the standardized tests, and my kids, I had about 30 children in my class, and all, I had bilingual ESL children. I had children with IEPs across the board. I had 100% of my children exceed the standard on the standardized test for data probability and statistics. And I was like, that's why.
Wow.
It wasn't anything. It was just so I learned early on that I really wanted to find things that I want school to be a place where children feel safe, not only physically safe, psychologically safe. I want the classroom to be kind of like a place where they can experiment and use their creativity and imagination. And you can learn all the things that you need to learn that way. And I struggled to find material back then. I struggled. So I would use my little scholastic points, and my kids were in novels, and I got special permission to not have to do the Title I required reading program. These are my kids are reading novels, and they did well. And so it was just a little bit of using creativity, imagination on my part, but like, how can I create this content that the children need to learn in a way that they connect to it, that it feels meaningful and relevant? So that's been something sitting with me for many, many years. Fast forward to the pandemic, when we told everybody, hey, I'll see you in 2 weeks, Andy, right? 2 weeks. And 2 weeks turned into what, a year, in some cases more, and things like that. So during the pandemic, home on my couch with my dog Balboa by my side, I was going through the same thing I was going through in the 90s with my classroom, trying to find content. Now, this was in the early childhood space. This was Head Start. So we have preschoolers jumping on Zoom meetings, and we had teachers, my teachers just were not proficient in the technologies. They just weren't. I said, okay. So I'm very I love tech. So I'm all over tech. So I'm very comfortable with this. I said, all right, let's see what we can do. Right. So I needed to do two things at the same time, like right now. One was train the teachers on the technology. So unpacking Google Workspace. We used Google Workspace, but using tools like slides, right, to create their, delivery of instruction, what they're doing with the children, how to insert text and video and all the thing. So I developed my professional learning plan. I met with the teachers every Tuesday without fail. And it was fantastic. Teachers learned so much on how to use Google Forms and how to use slides and, within the digital, classroom, which we are now in. And at the same time, I was looking for resources to supplement, to help the teachers, support what they were doing. And I was focusing on social emotional learning, which was starting to become a hot topic, right? So I think it really became, I'm going to say, prevalent in more, I'm going to say, everyday conversation with Michael Phelps. So he's the first one that I can think of who publicly stood up and said, I'm working on my mental health, right? As an athlete, right? So it really started with, a lot of conversations in terms of like a broader piece. Nobody really did that before, right? And then we know with the Olympics, Simone Biles was experiencing the twisties and, all the things that were going on there. So we started to have some, I'm going to say, national model or international models, but people who, the name Michael Phelps, the name Simone Biles, and these prevalent young adults, young athletes at the top of their game were talking about some of the challenges and struggles that they were having. And so definitely social emotional learning is nothing new. It's something I've been working on since about 2003 with positive behavior supports. And then my work centered around response to intervention or multi-tiered systems of support. You can exchange, However, what the whole big idea there is really providing children with high quality, equitable access to curriculum, as well as I'm going to say behavioral, social emotional learning, those types of skills. They used to call them soft skills. I think that they're embedded in who we are, which we'll talk about in a minute. But the whole idea is to build those pieces out. So my approach with starting Bo Knowz Learning came from, I really want to try to find resources for teachers, not only that they can use, but in meeting with the teachers every week and starting a group with our student support specialist, which was our mental health consultant, I saw very quickly just how much support our teachers were looking for too. Right? So that whole idea of staff wellness, right, was really coming through, and people were very openly sharing their struggles, our teachers, of what they were experiencing. And so we actually created, I'll call it like a support group, which I was not, it was just our student support specialist who was amazing. Her name's Laura. And the teachers met via Zoom once a week, every Thursday. But it gave them that space. So, but what I was seeing is that, this social emotional learning well-being thing isn't really about the children as much, it's about all of us, right? So that's where I started really looking for resources to not only support the families at home, to support the children and infuse some things in, the teachers can use in their slide decks and things that I can record for teachers to use when they're working with the kids via Zoom. But it was really the staff piece too, that it was very clear that they benefited, they wanted that space to just speak what they're experiencing, what they're going through. And I said, okay, we're onto something here. And I was looking for, and I couldn't find the type of resources I was looking for. The same way I couldn't find them back in the 90s with my fifth graders to put the textbooks aside, right? And so it was definitely a common theme. So I looked over at Balboa. I said, all right, Balboa, let's create them. And so that's where the idea for Bo Knowz Learning came from. 25, 30 years of just wanting to put meaningful, relevant, needed, varied resources, not just academic, but varied resources that kids can feel that they connect to, that's meaningful, and current, as well as our adults. That was really clear what that came out to me during that time. So I said, okay. So I started, this was very, very scary for me, Andy, because because as I was walking, the little, I call the paw prints, of course, to stay with the theme, right? The paw prints of the business development piece. I learned how to, it took a little time, went through different iterations of things. I decided to name it Bo, as you can, after Balboa. And there he is on there. That's his little puppy picture turned into a logo. But one of the reasons I did that is because on the Today Show, I heard during the, when we're at home, that the pet industry was like an $8 billion industry. Like, we love
Wow.
our pets. We love our pets, right? I'm like, well, yeah, of course we love our pets. And so why not? Some people said to me, oh, you're going to be a dog trainer, or no, no, no. We're about learning. I also want to share very briefly that, um, you know, I believe that pets are just as much of a part of our family. Of course, I'm a pet person. You can tell that already. But Balboa, who's now 6.5, has been a very powerful teacher to me. I've had dogs my whole life. My entire life, I've had dogs. And he's different. He's almost like having a 4-year-old in the sense that, he's very smart. He's very curious. He has different expressions that he uses for different things. And he's a very, very good boy. But he started as he got a little bit older, around one, or, once he was getting his adolescence, puffing his chest, he became very protective and more reactive, right? The barking, so I had never had that experience before. And it really reminded me of so many of my kids, right? Because they're so smart, they're so bright, and they're working on something, so I thought that he would be a really good model, right? For this whole concept of, meet me where I am, and that's my philosophy around education. And, what's your educational philosophy? Meet me where I am.
Yep.
One size does not fit all. And, very often we teach the way we're taught or learn, and we teach to the middle very often. So if you're a little below, we need to get you help to catch up. And if you're ahead, well, we'll put you in gifted or something. So my philosophy is meet me where I am. And so that's why I wanted to create not only professional learning, but instructional strategies and approaches, doing some models, and also content to help. I always thought I'd start with schools and teachers, but to tell you the truth, Andy, I know very well, particularly working in the early learning space, that parents are first teachers. And so I take a little bit of a different approach with some of the work that I do, and it's centered around a family approach. So, because parents are our first teachers, and children are not born with instruction booklets, or you can read all the books that you want. However, they have their own little unique design and blueprint, and they all have, everyone has their innate gifts and talents. Everyone has innate strengths. Everybody has areas, I don't really like that too much, or yeah, that's not really my thing, right? And that's the beauty of recognizing that. So not only do I help build out my sense of self, but I can help others around me know who I am, what I'm about. This is how I show up in the world. And this is what I'm really good at. This is where I need help or support. And that's okay. It's not a bad thing. Needing help is a good thing because that helps. And then there's other things that I just don't want to do. I'll find someone else to help me with. So I think Bo Knowz Learning is really about taking a holistic approach. It's understanding that we have four systems. We're human beings, not human doings, or right. So we have mental, physical, emotional, and spiritual sense. That's everybody. And just understanding that and building out a sense of self. Who am I? How do I show up in the world? And then how do I work and learn with others? So that self-awareness, right? That social awareness, and then self-regulation or self-management interchangeably is a big one. I know we've heard a lot about that. Executive functioning skills, but how do we develop those? How do I work on them as an adult? And how do I, transfer that to my children, whether they're my children at home or children in school, right? And so that's where this whole kind of idea started back in the 90s. And then, light year, right? Time warp to, the pandemic, but I was experiencing the same thing. And I believe that I believe that one of the most important things about being with children, whether our children at home or our children in school, are really those high quality interactions, right? How,
Yeah.
right? The conversations we have. And one of the reasons why, I mean, I've been pre-K through 12 and university, but I love the early learning space, Andy, because it's so important, right? So research shows that birth to 7 is download. Our model of the world, how we see things, our experiences is anchored in birth to 7 and what we see. So no, children won't do what they're told per se. Children do what they see. So I used to say, teach, model, practice, repeat. Now I've changed that. Now I say model, teach, practice, model, repeat. It really starts with that model. So I'm passionate about supporting parents and teachers on how we can learn about those high quality interactions and use different strategies because they're watching and downloading. And that's really super important to the trajectory into adulthood. So it's really such a special time. And what can we do to help that child, learn who they are and how they want to show up and what they're about and those things.
So I've heard it a couple of times. I'm sure you've heard it way more than me. We have a new teacher, let's say, that comes into our early childhood program. They get given the curriculum, right? And there's a million people selling curriculums out there. Some are good, some are not so good, some are in between, of course.
Mhm.
And and again, just to kind of generalize, like I feel like some teachers are, insert the right adjective here, I don't know, paralyzed, afraid, don't want to upset the apple cart, understand that the curriculum costs money, understand there's value in kind of standardization, everyone's doing it the same way, blah, blah, blah. And I feel like in some cases, the discussions I've had, that almost stifles this individuality, that stifles the creativity, that really they have this sense that like I was given this curriculum. I have to stand here. I have to read what's on these four corners of the page. I can't deviate from that. And obviously, what you've been preaching, and you know, and I'm sure you would kind of say, like, that's okay as a starting place, but the curriculum by itself probably shouldn't be the be all end all when we think about how we're going to engage the children in our class. So, how would you recommend for teachers that may find themselves, maybe they don't have a supporting boss, or maybe they don't know they have that latitude, or maybe they're just struggling to figure out how do I insert some creativity into this? How do I take this curriculum, which is vetted and researched and evidence based and blah, 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 but how do I really make it meaningful and impactful for those kiddos that are, you know, in my classroom every single day? What advice would you have for teachers on how you can start that?
Sure. So I love curriculum and teaching learning, and yes, it is important and there is space for it, but I feel very, very strongly that it's meant to serve as a frame, right? And really the reason why we are in our classrooms is really to meet the needs of children. So taking the time to learn and know that, know the children, know that, like I said, their strength, their talent, and use that frame of a curriculum, but where kids have input, where kids have choice. So you can take any theme or any big idea. It doesn't matter what it is. And very often I've seen in classrooms like you're explaining is that teachers think, well, everybody has to do it the same way, or everybody's going to take the same cutout of the apple and color it in. Okay. It doesn't have to be that way. We can have children express not only their creativity and imagination, which you'll hear me say a lot because it's so important, but their interests and what they want to learn about. And I think one of the ways to do that is to really start by asking those big questions like why, like how do you know? And taking the data, the multiple measures of data we have about the children and integrating that in. I think very often we have a tendency to underestimate what children birth to summer preschoolers can do, or what they're capable of, or what they actually really do understand. I'm going to say they understand a lot more than we think they do, even if they don't have the vernacular to articulate it. They understand. They can feel the vibes and the energy, that kind of stuff. And I would just have them explore within the frame of the curriculum, just let them explore it. Right? So no matter what the big idea is, no matter what the theme is, there are many ways we can involve the children to unpack that theme. And I think that some of the most powerful materials in the classroom are the ones you get at the dollar store or things like that, where the kids can experiment and try and things like that. So I think very often we think that, and it also, I've seen like really, really, even whether you're newer experienced teachers hold back because for not doing the things that they, to meet the kids' needs or individualize and tailor, even though they're supposed to be doing that because the book is saying something different. And I would say, I respect the book. I was the purchaser of the books. Put the book down. You know what's in the book. You know the content. You know what we want. And just have fun with the kids unpacking it and use different multiple approaches to have the kids demonstrate their learning, their coming along of what they're learning about this topic. I love portfolios. I know that's an old school term, but they work. Let the kids showcase what they're learning about this. I would say pulling texts, right? Maybe pulling songs. We can change the songs we use in the classrooms. They don't have to be the same ones all the time. Find some poetry. Find some different types of visuals. It's very easy to do now with AI. You can pull any visual you need, I've seen in so many classrooms, like doing the caterpillars, right? Like life cycle of a butterfly. I mean, you can make that come to life now with AI,
It's
right?
amazing. Yeah, right.
Right. So I'm just saying that there's also ways to integrate technology that doesn't mean screen time, but also look for different ideas about how we can take these important concepts. But at the end of the day, this really is about children's growth and development, right? So respect the book. It's there for a reason. We have standards. It's really important. But I would say think out of the box. I'm trying to come up with another term besides that, but that's really one that comes to mind now of how that's achieved and accomplished. And I've also seen teachers, whatever is happening, right? Put that aside because something else popped up, like in the learning within that. So just go with it, but I always say I go back to my fifth grade, involve the kids. Ask them what they want to know about this. Ask them what they find interesting. What do you want to learn about this? Our unit of study is buildings. It's one of them, right? And it has what do you want to learn about this? And they will tell you. And we want and let the children contribute to the way the curriculum is executed.
Well, and certainly I think you've kind of alluded to this before, but we saw so many of those curriculums, they kind of fell down during COVID because who in the world would have ever anticipated some of the crazy stuff that we had to do during COVID, right? And
Sure.
that certainly wasn't found in the book somewhere. So, I mean, look, the COVID stuff it was a horrible period of time, and I'm not saying it was great, but what I am saying is, wow, there was a tremendous amount of creativity and best leading practices and just innovation that occurred. I wish that somehow we could capture all that. I mean, everything from how we did pick up and drop off to engagement over, the Zoom screen to, the return and what the return looked like. Um, I think that's where, a lot of our early educators really shine. Just they had to get out of that box because
Yeah.
the circumstances forced them to. And just so many wonderful, cool things that people did to go above and beyond. That was really exciting to see, quite frankly, how our profession really not only met the challenge, but just blew the challenge out of the water with some of the really crazy stuff that everybody was doing.
Andy, it's such an important point because I can speak directly to the technology tools my teachers
Yeah.
use, and they infuse them everywhere from parent teacher conferences to like just the way of collecting information now in forms and Class Dojo and they understood Google Classroom in the sense that like there are different ways you can put out resources to parents. We can do some things for parents within classroom that they can tap into. The way teachers leverage the technology tools for they're creating things, they're back to school nights, they're all these things. I mean, every teacher did a slide deck. Every child had their own. That never happened before,
No, right.
right?
Who
And
even know
then
you can do something like that, right?
right. And then it became really valuable for moving up ceremonies, especially when because they did these you just bolt off the slides.
Right.
Meaning you can create a slide, Andy at 3, Andy at 4, Andy at 5, right? It's right there. And so I think a lot of good came out of a very challenging situation. Maybe it's because I'm an optimist and maybe I like change and opportunities and grow, but I agree for a very difficult period of time. I think there are a lot of good things that did come out of it and helped us enhance and grow our practice. Because here's the reality. The reality is the 3-year-olds in our classrooms right now this fall are not the 3-year-olds from before the pandemic or
Mm,
10 years ago or
sure.
15 years ago they're not.
Yeah.
And I think one of the areas for school in general, but early childhood education, absolutely, is how are we going to evolve for that global knowledge economy, 21st century, right? World that these children are going into. I'm probably going to say a high number. And it might even be more than this, but at least 70 to 80% of the jobs that these babies are going to have don't exist right now.
Well, that's a very good point. Yeah.
Yeah,
I mean, look at
they don't
look at
exist.
just and I know you talk about it in a lot of conferences and stuff. I mean, just look at artificial intelligence, look at AI and the leaps and bounds. I mean, you really, I don't even know that the thing you think back to is like 1995 when we had dial-up internet and basically it changed the world. And there's still people saying like, well, that internet's a fad, that's going to go away. And here it is, 30 years later,
Well,
whatever it is. But
that's exactly what was said about the internet at
right.
that time. And exactly. And, there are those few that went the dot com. And let me tell you something, the bubble burst in their favor. And yes,
Right, right.
right. So the internet was at the time. Yeah. Oh, it's just a fact. It's just gonna, yeah, no, it's not. And just from 95 to now, how we've changed exponentially in 30 years, we can do, look, the way I worked 3 months ago is different than I
Yeah.
work today. And that's why I think even, my trajectory with starting Bo Knowz Learning. And in the beginning, I was petrified. I was like, I don't know what I'm doing. I'm not a business. I don't know anything about this. I'm an educator. That's all I know. I'm not an entrepreneur. What I learned was that actually the skill sets of leading a school, leading a district are transferable it's the same concept. It's just, a lot of the concepts are transferable,
Yeah.
but even the way I work, I mean, the past 3 years, like 3 months is completely different. 3 months, so it's ever changing. So, I know what it's like not to have one of these things. You can't see the phone there, right? There's my butt. But the children are born. It's like a little, little right here, little sprout, right, out of their shoulders. So it's not so much the technology that's the issue, or shall we say the distraction, it's how we use it or how we use that model engagement. I was a high school principal, and this was 10 years ago. And 10 years ago isn't now with what the phones can do and what, right?
Right, for
And it was a
sure.
challenge. But in the sense that, do we take the way, give the phones back, I mean, it was again 10 years ago, the technology has changed even with the pouches and everything. But my point is that we really have to think about the experiences children need for their future trajectory. And I'm going to say that really, really building relationships and connection and helping develop mindset. How do I approach things? Right. And acknowledging, I think if I had to work on let me say it this way. If I had to suggest a pivot I would like for us to see, that is how we manage and navigate the big feelings with small children.
Yeah.
So my experiences, and this is children of all age, but we have a tendency to downplay or minimize or tell children how they're feeling. Andy, you're just upset because it's not lunchtime yet. So just go back. Well, Andy may not be upset. It may not be upset. It may be, or it may not have anything to do with that. I'm making that assumption, right? Instead of, like starting invalidation. Because then you want to escalate a challenging behavior or a behavior that can be perceived as challenging real quick, validate it.
Yeah,
That's
well,
the sauce.
that's a good point for
That's
sure.
secret sauce. I'm telling you the answer. Here's the answer.
Thank you. I appreciate.
A
Look, I
valid.
got an almost 5-year-old and almost 2-year-old, so I'm taking notes on this because I don't look. I'm not perfect, and the
No,
skill
no, it's not,
set
but
that my parents had is not probably the right skill set in today's time and age because
I
everything's changed so darn much since when I was a kid, right?
know. And we do what we see. It comes back to that, right?
Right.
So I was listening to an interview with Judge Sonia Sotomayor, and she's coming out with a new book. I was just listen. I just heard it in the background, but she was basically explaining her relationship with her mom, and she said to her mom, Mom, I don't remember like you hugging me. I know that you love me, but I don't remember really like being hugged. And her mom said to her, no one taught me how to
Hmm.
do that. Like I wasn't hugged. So I'm completely paraphrasing her story, but
Yeah.
it was so powerful. I stopped me in my tracks. It was literally this morning. And I really was sitting listening to because what she was explaining, and this is a Supreme Court justice, right?
Right.
Not an
Right.
educate, right? Just as a child and as a parent reflecting on her experiences, truly, Andy, which is why I was like, yes, is really parents as first teachers And it's about that model. And that's why adults, whether you're a parent or an educator, teacher, like your well-being, your mental health, your self-care has to come first. I know that's what they tell you in the airplane. When the thing comes down, put it on first, and you can help somebody else.
Yep.
But the reality is that's true. And so it's okay to want to learn and grow. And it's okay to explore who we, and say, look, I'm not sure how to handle this. I didn't experience this. Let me see where I can get some assistance with this. And that's where, I would like to be that place where, people, again, parents, teachers can go to get some resources or strategies to handle these things. Because in all my years, I haven't seen like one parent welcome a meltdown in the store. I haven't seen it. Like, yeah, it's great. Keep going, right? And
Ugh.
so it's stressful. Especially when things happen like in restaurants or an airplane, it's stressful. You want it to stop. You feel like everybody's watching you or watching your child or make them.
And judging.
Yes, the judging is crazy, right? The judgment is crazy. And even if no one's really doing, you might know somebody's doing it, right? And so but what do we do? Because I can tell you, our bodies feel it when that starts to happen. Right? You feel anxious, you feel panicky, and the child's picking up on that energy just like Balboa would. Right. So, taking a page from Caesar's playbook, be a calm, confident leader. And, he's right. He's right. Being that calm, confident leader. Okay. I'm going to take care of myself. I'm going to recognize when I'm getting activated. And I know what to do when that happens because it's going to happen. I'm going to be activated by behavior or something. I'm not going to like something or something. So I know how to manage it. And then in turn, I can show up as my best self in the moment to help the child navigate what they're feeling or experiencing. But the first step is validation. And the second thing is just ask, or it's not even first step is validation. Second step is change proximity. Just move that little space. Don't have to ask what happened because that's only going to escalate it more. It doesn't matter right now. Doesn't matter. Validate, change proximity, and just give some time. Then we can swing back around. But, just avoiding telling children what they're feeling or what they're going through, because it's unfair. And it doesn't help the child really learn to gauge their feelings under those big core emotions. So, yeah, I'm very passionate about this. I think it's super important. It's a lifelong journey. It doesn't start or stop at a certain place in time. But ultimately it's that we want to feel, I know I do. Look, challenges come. We all live life. We all live through tragedies. We all have very difficult times. But at the end of the day, I want to feel like I have a sense of peace, right? Even when things aren't going my way or going well, but I still want to have a sense of peace. Like, I got this. I can do hard things. And, so when they come, I can still feel like, okay, I got this, and that comes with the self-regulation and the self-awareness and all these important skill sets what we want to start teaching children young. And that's by the modeling. Modeling is the most powerful thing we can do. It's like we were talking about bedtime, right?
Yeah, right.
Yeah, it can be a challenge. Bedtime can be a real challenge. And one of the things we can do is, okay, we start to wind down for bed. I'm going to put my laptop down. I'm going to even if I'm going to go back to it 10 minutes after they go to bed, that's not the issue, right? That's okay. But they see you doing it. And it become like, this is what mom does. This is what dad does. This is what grandma does. This is what auntie does. This is what we do. So it's not like I'm telling you to do it. I'm doing it. And they'll follow along, so to speak. Like, yeah. So creating those systems and routines that we want to have in place. And it starts with us doing them. So just being that model and,
One of the things you hear a lot is the term social emotional learning. Everybody uses it, right? Throwing it around. People are talking about it. I don't know that everybody really understands what it is. Can we spend a couple moments and just unpack this? Like, what are some of the big fallacies? You often hear like, oh, that's a skill set you're born with, or oh, it's the same thing as emotional intelligence, or what's the other one that there are the intellectual intelligence and all these other terms that kind of get thrown around. Like, can we just spend a couple minutes really unpack what is this social emotional learning? What does it look like for an adult? What's it look like for a kid? What are some real interesting techniques that we can actually incorporate SEL into our practices every day? Would you mind doing that for us?
Of course, yeah. So I'll start with the probably the person that's well known anchored in emotional intelligence research is Dan Goleman. So I'm a huge fan and researcher of that work. I also really love the work of Stephen Covey. He's done the 7 habits. Most people know the 7 habits of highly effective people or have heard of
Yeah.
it,
Yep.
sharpen the saw. Yeah. But actually, Stephen Covey wrote another book called The Eighth Habit, which I actually think is just as, if not even a little bit, it's just so important, right? So this research is going on for quite some time, and it's really about whatever terminology we use, because I know sometimes we get like the buzzwords, right? So sometimes
Right.
I'll say in education, flavor of the month. What are we using this month? Essentially, it's this is my interpretation of integrating different bodies of research, including Carol Dweck's work on mindset, growth mindset, fixed mindset, these different pieces. So essentially, it's about the human experience. It's a piece of the human experience. So we have, as I mentioned before, we have 4 systems: mental, emotional, spiritual, physical. Our mental is our mind, our thoughts. Our mind controls all this that goes up here. So our mental is that tape that plays what we tell ourselves, because it's going all the time. We all have thoughts racing in our mind about everything. So the mental aspect is really about what's going on. What are our thoughts, our self-talk? Our physical are our physical bodies. Our emotion are really our feelings, what we're experiencing. And then our spiritual is, what is my purpose? How is this all connected? So it's not a religious piece at all, but it's more that place, right? That sense of self, that sense of purpose. What am I meant to do here, and things like that. So all 4 systems work together simultaneously. So we've had a lot of stuff about our physical bodies, our exercise, all kind of good stuff. We've talked about mental health, and we will say mental health is, they're all connected, right? So what we think is connected to how we feel, connected to our bodies, and connected how we're showing up in the world, right? Our place, right? So the whole concept behind social emotional learning is just understanding and acknowledging that we are a multifaceted system, and that these systems are in work and in play all the time together. And we just need to, in terms of our holistic growth and development and well-being, be aware and pay attention to all of them. We all have a strength, right? So I'm really good with the spiritual side of things. I'm really good. I'm really good with meaning. I have the faith. I see the possible, I'm good with that. Some people are really good at the physical side. They really train their bodies, or, things like that. But understanding that we are multifaceted human beings, and that holistic approach is also mindful of our self-talk and mindful of how we're feeling. And these are areas that we haven't been taught in, right? We haven't learned about those things. In fact, the research is relatively, a few decades old. It hasn't been a long time. You can go back to, psychology, all the kinds of, but I'm talking about what I'm referring to now is this has been prevalent here. So it's really acknowledging that we have these different facets of ourselves, to be aware of them, and how can we build them out for our holistic big picture. I shared with you what my holistic big picture is now in my life is definitely peace. I just want peace. I want joy, even when things aren't going well. I'm okay. I've learned, right? This is a training those muscles. It doesn't just happen, right? And that's where social emotional learning comes in, learning how to train ourselves, right? I'll give a couple examples. One of my big pictures now, quite honestly, is freedom. Okay. I'm in a place in my life where I don't like the rules, those little like nuancy kind of thing. Like I want to have at this stage of my life some more freedom, some more flexibility. I want to do the work that I want to do. I want to partner with who I want to collaborate with who I want to collaborate. So that's what that means for me, right? So the social emotional learning side of this is okay. Self-aware. I know who I am. I know what my strengths are. I know the areas that I don't like or I'm not good at. So what does that look like in action? When I was a high school principal in Newark, I had a team. And being trained in the DISC, which is an assessment like a personality, my team were all different than me. I needed different particular skill sets. I needed, I got the vision. I'll go tell anybody the vision of the school. I'll bring the kids together. I got all of that, but I need help with the details. So they say, okay, we have this for you today. Okay, thanks. I need help with that. So that's a part of it as well. Not only developing who I am, this is who I am, this is what I know. What are the areas that I want to learn more about, or what are the areas that no matter, it's just not going to happen. One thing that you're never going to see me on is the voice. I don't even sing to the children because it's that bad. Okay. I'll clap and do the little dance. I'm the dancer in the room. I got that. But you don't want to hear me sing.
We're not going to get you up on the karaoke stage.
Oh, yeah. There might have to be a few caveats to that. But you know what I'm saying? But I know that about myself. There's things that hey, I can add value here, right? But that part, let me find somebody else who can help you with that. So part of social emotional learning is development of ourselves, who we are. Another part of it is that self-regulation, self-management. And that's something that is very connected to knowing who we are, but it's really self-regulation and self-management under the auspices of SEL is how do I manage or regulate myself, right? So knowing my stress response, there are three: fight, flight, or freeze. Most you'll hear fight or flight from the saber-toothed tiger days. We don't live there anymore. It's okay. But knowing how I respond to stress helps me manage that. It also helps me understand other people, right? And their stress response. So I interpret it appropriately. So what's an example? So for example, have you ever had like a conversation with someone, almost like maybe you're agitated, you're aggravated, something's happening, and they walk away from you? They're like, what is your response? Get over here. I'm talking to you. You're walking away from me. You're being disrespectful. Get over here. I'm talking to you. Okay. That person's like, I ain't coming back. I need a minute because their stress response is flight. I got to bounce here for a minute because it's not going to be good if I stay around. My stress response is freeze. I'm a freezer. If something happens around, like I literally freeze, I need time to process. I'm not a reactor. No matter what I do, it's not going to happen. I can't. Right. So knowing how I am and how I respond and knowing that about others. So social emotional learning isn't about me. Isn't only about me. It's also about learning. Behavior is predictable and there's patterns, but really how to build, right, relationships that are positive, productive. I'm not talking about friends you like. You don't even have to like somebody, or you don't even have to be their friend. But that doesn't mean you can't collaborate with, learn from somebody who's different than you. And I think that's one of the big issues we're having now, right? Is these differences, right? And so it's okay to not be like me. It's okay to not like the same. 3-year-olds know that. They know that, right? All this other stuff is taught. So, but when you're building that sense out, we want to really help take our sense of self and our self-regulation to then build relationships with others. So that's another big part of it as well. How we make decisions, how we resolve conflict, how we approach piece of things, right? We all have our piece, but learning about what is best for me and for others, or how to go about this. So I'm going to say that it's not just about, when we say mental health, we kind of have historically a negative connotation to mental health. And people who have had different types of, I'm going to use a very broad term of disorders, okay, experienced very inhumane and terrible treatment historically.
Yeah.
Okay. Was not okay to say you're not okay. We're saying it, we're still not there yet either, but
Yeah, it's gotten a lot better, but you're right.
it's got a
There's
lot
still a
better.
stigma
Right?
in many cases,
Correct.
right? So,
Significant stigma.
yeah.
And so the work that I'm trying to promote is that there is no stigma, right? We need to come from that and understand that life is a journey. We're all walking it, and we all experience common things in our journey, in our experience, right? Meaning we're all going to experience grief. How we grieve is different. How we see that is different. And it may even be, when someone passes away, it may even be different circumstances to that. Like when my mom passed away, it was a blessing. It was her time, because my mom wasn't herself. Like she had COPD, she had dementia. It was her time. It was a blessing. So someone had said to me, well, I'm sort of, you're not crying. Are you kidding me? My mom's free.
Yeah.
I'd be crying if she was still here like this. So, but in other circumstances, I may not feel that way. So, meaning we also approach things differently based on circumstance. And that's a part of all of this. But I guess what I'm really trying to promote with this work is that it is okay. And we all live life. And so why don't we think about the experience we want to receive and be that, right? So I think one of my fundamental core values is grace. You'll hear me talk to my staff about it, whoever I'm working with. I lead with grace. And that doesn't mean, it does mean sometimes bending the rules. Sometimes it means, no, it's not a one-all approach. But if we want to create classrooms that promote this, then we need to create staff practices that promote it. So the staff feel that they feel valued. They feel like they can walk this very difficult path of life, not just the people in charge, or not just me. You know what I mean? That's grace is universal.
Well, it
And
goes back to the modeling, like you talked about
right,
before. I mean, the
that
same thing, right? The
right,
leadership modeling.
right. So that's what I'm working with in my work with like organizations or small businesses, schools, thinking about that, because we can't say, well, we want children to experience it in the classroom, but the teachers don't, or the staff don't experience that.
Right. Yeah.
Right. So if you have
Hard to foster that environment if you're not consistently doing it, right?
correct. So for me, under the auspices of social emotional learning is culture and climate. Now, some may argue, and that's fine. I'll take that. Anybody can talk to me about that. But quite honestly, the culture and climate of any organization, a school, a business, I think goes right under the auspices of social emotional learning, and thinking about what kind of environment do we want to work and learn in? What is our bottom line? One of the best books I've ever read about this was by Ed Catmull. And he was the co-founder of Pixar and learning about the history of Pixar. But it was an incredible book. It's called Creativity Inc. But what I really learned was about a model of a workplace where how they really anchor their core values, and how they made some changes based on employee response, and how they create, so yes, Pixar, I don't think anybody would argue a couple things. One, they're very successful.
Yeah.
Who doesn't know Pixar? Sure. Everybody knows Pixar.
Right.
Right. I mean, everybody knows who Pixar is, or at least a product of Pixar, someone, right? But really what their roots were, and what they hold on to. And if you understanding that, you can see why they're so successful, but it's truly anchored in a vision that they're not willing to let go. Like, we're going to stick to the vision and our core values. And this is what we want our teams to experience working here. And this is what we all hold on to. And their one thing is story. If the story's not right, we're trashing it. And it's not personal. So Andy's doing all the thing, I'm doing the music. And what do you mean we're trashing? No, the story's not right. And we all know that. Back to the drawing board we go. So they're unified in their core value of story. Story comes first. So I say that to say that those are some examples, but I think with social emotional learning, it's really those things, as well as really just establishing a culture and climate of our household. What do we want it to feel like when someone walks through our door, when we come home, right? What do we want that to feel like? What do I want my company to feel like? What do I want my school, my center to feel like? What do I want people to experience? And sometimes I think we have some priorities or such that maybe, well, I'll say it this way. I heard someone not too over the summer make a comment about, well, the front end staff doesn't need that. They don't need to be trained or anything. I'm like, wait a minute, your front end staff, they're the very first folks that people see and talk to when they contact your organization. What do you mean?
Right.
We're like front and center, right? So it's like, wait a minute, let's rethink that a little bit. Like, you're worried about the C-suite or whatever the exact, like, this is your, like, if the people who, your front line do not feel valued, they don't feel respected, they don't seem seen or heard. If anybody thinks that's not going to translate to your customer, whoever that customer is, parent, so it's about that too. But I think the fundamental bottom line is that it's a human being thing. How we want to, our experience here, that we're here to learn or grow, or even through all the hard stuff we may not understand. But I think one of the big ideas of social emotional learning is growth. Growth, just growing as a person, growing as, in my role, growing in just as a person, growing in just growth. And that's why, I often use the metaphor of planting seeds, in the work that I do, because that's how I genuinely see it, is planting seeds. And they take time to foster and grow. You don't put a pumpkin seed and there's that pumpkin to pop up, right? Immediately. So planting seeds in relationships, planting seeds in, for my own growth and development, planting seeds for my schools, my programs, my curricula, whatever that is. And how do we foster that? And it's really the human connection that is the anchor of all these other things we do, all of it. So let's focus on that. Let's focus on the human connection. Let's focus on building the relationships. And then the stuff will fall into place.
Well, I mean, it really is an organizational commitment to want to do this, right? And go on this journey, as you've kind of heard, straight out. Like, this isn't something you're born with. This isn't something that just happens by accident. This is a purposeful journey that we're on to make us thrive, make our staff thrive, make the parents thrive, make the little ones that we work with thrive as well. And I got to imagine it's pretty rewarding for the organizations that work with you and engage you on this work, and to kind of see that catalyst of change, and where you started from and where they're at and where they're eventually going to get to. That's got to be pretty rewarding to kind of go on that journey with them.
Yes. I would say that in some instances, it's actually a little bit of a challenge at first. Because, we're not used to doing that.
No, I mean, this is self-reflection. This is tough stuff, right? I mean,
Tough stuff. Yeah.
nobody
And
wants to say that they're not doing the best, or that they have faults, or that they're falling short or have some deficiencies. So it takes a real level of maturity to even begin, I would think, this process and this examination.
yeah. Some people are uncomfortable with it. Some people are there. Some people, look, I've seen one thing for sure. There are people everywhere we go, whether it be Starbucks, whether it be the airport, whether it be wherever we go, someone in our vicinity is suffering in silence. I have been at a few events where the door was opened for with strangers, not people you know, not support groups, a women's conference to be specific. What ended up happening at that event were about two, then three, but three people share deep, deep trauma. In a forum where you just knew, you could feel that person's heart. They just needed to share that they hadn't before. I've had the same experience about 3 or 4 times, and they were very powerful. I know
Wow.
there are people suffering in silence. I know there are people that are going through things that you would never know. They show up to work on time. They do what they're supposed to do. They smile through, but that doesn't mean they're not suffering. And I think a big part of the social emotional learning piece is recognizing the place of trauma in our lives. And by trauma, I mean, my definition of trauma has drastically changed. And by no means am I going to posture myself as a researcher, but I'm not I'm the learner of these things, not the architect. However, my perception and definition of trauma has significantly shifted and changed over the past several years to understand that I used to think that trauma is like a single bad thing that happened,
Yeah,
like
right.
it's not. So trauma is very much a spectrum from little t, like tiny, tiny little t, to big T, bold, capital, straight through. And we all experience it. All of us experience trauma in some form, sometimes multiple times. And I think something to be mindful of in the early childhood space, because unfortunately, I've experienced this, is that our little babies are coming already experiencing trauma. And those are the ones we know about. And understanding that when something else is going on, we're going to see behavioral changes. And that means in adults is what just behavioral patterns or changes. Oh, I
Yeah.
noticed that so-and-so is taking a little bit longer at lunch, or I know so-and-so didn't get this, report done on time this month when they always do. Like I've noticed, and we have a tendency to take out right? I hate this term, take the hammer out, right? Or send the old email. Instead of sending the email, how about we go up to the person, say, how are you? And mean it. I started a workshop not long ago I said, everybody have something to write with? They said, yes. So I asked, I said, how are you? No, I mean, really, how are you? And I just want you to we're going to take about 3 minutes just to reflect, just how are you? And we left it alone. If someone ends up wanting to share or not, that's fine. But let's start. How are you? And I appreciate when, people do share some things on their minds, right? Well, quite honestly, I have other things to do and I'd rather be in my classroom right now. Gotcha. Okay.
Well,
Literally, that happened.
honesty, right? Honesty.
Yeah. So that's cool. I appreciate, so I'm going to do my best, but I already know that I have people not here.
Yep.
Oh, okay.
Sure.
It's okay. I don't take it personally. It's okay. I'm sticking to my story. I'm going to meet you where you are. And right now, you have a lot of things on your plate. You got a lot to do and you'd rather be in your classroom. I got you. So let's hopefully there'll be some kind of nugget that you can take away. But if not, I see you and I'm here to support you.
Well, tell people if they want to get engaged with you, if they want to benefit from all the wonderful offerings that you have, what's the best way to get in touch with you to stay up to date on what you're up to? What's the best way to get a hold of you on all this stuff?
Yeah, for sure. So my email is kim@boknowzlearning.com. BOKNOWZ learning.com. I would welcome anybody's email at any time. Or all over social media, TikTok, Instagram, Facebook, Bo Knowz Learning. It's easy to find. The logo is the same. My website is boknowzlearning.com. So I actually just made some changes to that. I have some exciting new things I'm very excited about that I'm going to be launching. I haven't told anybody, but I'll tell you.
Oh, here we go.
So
Breaking
I'll
news.
give you yes, no one knows this yet. I'm in the process of launching 2 things. The first is called the Student Success Roadmap. So
All
this is
right.
actually a personalized plan to support children in school. And so I'm really happy about it. And I put together a little customized package to support parents and teachers for that. And then the second one that's going to be launched is pretty going back to, my mission to serve families and support that is called Slide into Social Emotional Learning for Families. That is an
Nice.
online course for families. Yeah. So it unpacks mindfulness, core emotions, feelings. There's the whole idea is coping skills. And so by the end, this is a family activity. There are 8 weeks of, lesson. You can go, of course, at your own pace or no test, nothing like that. But there are actually family activities
Hmm,
built in to help. Yeah. So I'm really excited about that.
that's great.
Yeah, and so those things will be launching soon, and they'll be on social media and the website and such. So, but I think I've been spending a lot of time developing these pieces, reiterating, iterating, and so I want to make sure that they're say tried and true. And then I do lifetime updates. I'm also offering Zoom meetings like Q&A or little content pieces that people can jump on. So you'll have access to all that. I have some parent guides and other resources that come with all of that as well. So it's like a little bundle, but that's going to be launching soon. So I'm just working on the final touches to that, but I'm really excited about that and looking forward to connecting with anybody who'd be interested. You can find me on LinkedIn. And we're all over social media, like I said, our website and my email. You're more than welcome to email me. I would love to hear from you at any time.
Wow, well, that's off. Congratulations on the new
Thank
launch of those things.
you.
That's going to be awesome. I know
Yeah.
you've been working hard on all that, so it's great to see it come to fruition and excited to check it out when it comes out. And you're going to be down in Puerto Rico in March.
Yes, I'm so excited
That'll be
about
good.
that. Yes, I can't wait.
So if you haven't signed up yet, go over to headstarteast.org, headstarteast.org, March 2nd through the 5th down in beautiful Puerto Rico. Going to have a great conference and looking forward to seeing everybody down in the Caribbean again. It's been a couple of years, so that'll be good. And the nice look, March, we don't have hurricanes in March, so we're safe, right? It'll be good.
Yes, that's absolutely true. I'm really looking forward to it. It's going to be an amazing event. So please get there if you can. It'll be definitely worth your while. And if you can get down, please come and say hi.
Wonderful. Well, Kim, thank you so much for your generosity and for all you do, your passion and your drive and just the creativity that you bring with you. Truly, just can't say enough wonderful things about Dr. Kim. She is just a powerhouse of information and a great resource. So please check her out. Go over to BoKnowzLearning.com, drop her a line. I don't do the TikTok thing. I need to figure that out. If I figure it out, I'll follow you on TikTok. I don't know how to do those dances that they do and all that stuff, so I don't know. But
Yeah, that's a whole skill set in itself, right? Becoming a TikToker. I can't say I've managed that well either, but I'm working on it. I'm a work in progress
there you go. We'll figure that out together. I know
for
my
sure.
weaknesses, as you mentioned, right? So TikTok is one of them.
For sure.
But thank you so much for joining us today. And of course, thank you all for being with us on this journey and listening. We hope you found today's episode very valuable and got you thinking about some of the very interesting ways to incorporate this into your classroom, your day to day routine, and even more so in your organization and in your life at large. So thank you. Hope you join us on the next one. And until then, I'm Andy saying have a wonderful day.
Thanks again.